Hi everyone, welcome to DIY with Nancy. Hope you're all doing well. Today I'm going to bake with sweet potato and I'm going to make a sweet potato biscuit. In Portuguese we call it Broas de Batata Doce. Now I'm going to be making it with two types of flour, almond flour and yellow corn flour. And I'm going to shape it in a form of a diamond. That's how I learned. But you know what? You could shape it any way you like. You can shape it in a square. You could shape it in a round ball and flatten it a little bit. Either way, it doesn't matter what it looks like. It's what it tastes like. So stay with me and watch how to make Broas de Batata Doce, sweet potato biscuits, step by step. Let's get to baking. Here are the following ingredients you'll need for the Broas de Batata Doce or the sweet potato biscuits. You need sweet potatoes, almond flour, sugar, yellow corn flour, lemon zest, cinnamon, and 3 eggs. And I will list the quantity of the ingredients as we go along with the recipe. Okay, let's get started. Here I have 3 medium-sized sweet potatoes. And I'm going to just take the sweet potato and cut it in half. And then I'm going to cut it in half again, just as I'm doing here. And then I'm going to cut them into cubes. I just find it's easier to place them in the water when they're smaller pieces and it's just a quicker boil. So while I'm cutting these sweet potatoes, I do have a medium-sized pot with water that's boiling, and that way when I have the sweet potatoes ready and cut in pieces, I just place it into the boiling water. So here's my pot with boiling water. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add 1 teaspoon of salt before I add the sweet potatoes. And now I'm ready to add the sweet potatoes to the boiling water, and I'm going to let it boil for about 15 to 20 minutes. Now the sweet potatoes have been boiling for about 20 minutes, so I'm just going to run a knife through the sweet potato to see if it's soft to the touch. And if it is, as you can see, they're ready. Next, I'm going to use a strainer just to remove the water from the sweet potatoes immediately after cooking them. Once you've drained the water from the sweet potatoes, place them back into the same pot. Next, using a potato masher, I'm going to mash the sweet potatoes into a puree. Now you can use a food processor or a blender, but I'm just simply going to do it the old-fashioned way. The sweet potato puree is ready. Now to the puree, I'm going to add the balance of the ingredients. Here I have 2 1/4 cups of granulated sugar. I'm going to add that in there. Now I'm going to mix the sugar into the puree, but before I do that, I'm going to place the stove on low heat, and I'm going to keep stirring the sugar into the sweet potato puree. Make sure it's all well incorporated. And make sure you keep mixing because you don't want your sugar and the puree to stick to the bottom. Even though I'm using a non-stick saucepan, you want to make sure you keep stirring. Now that the sugar is incorporated into the puree, you can see it's a soft texture. And now at this point, I'm going to turn off the stove. Next, I'm adding 2 large eggs. The eggs are at room temperature. I've turned off the heat. So I'm just going to mix all the ingredients now from here on in without the stove being on. So I'm going to incorporate the eggs into the sweet potato puree, keep mixing, and stir it until it's well incorporated. Next, I'm going to add the zest of 1 lemon. Place that into the puree. Again, I'm going to keep stirring until it's well incorporated before I add my next ingredient. Next, I'm adding 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. For the next ingredient, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon powder. Next, I'm adding 2 cups of almond flour. Place that into the puree and stir it until, again, it's well incorporated into the sweet potato puree. And for the last ingredient, I'm adding 1 1/2 cups of yellow corn flour.
Place that into the puree and keep stirring until the corn flour is incorporated into the puree. Once all your ingredients are incorporated into the puree, at that point, you turn on your stove on a low to medium heat and continue stirring. So I've been stirring for about 6 minutes or so, and I can see the timer, and that's how I know it's around 6 minutes. You'll see that it will come together in a dough form. So it starts pulling away from the sides of the pot and forming in the center. And at that point, you know that your puree is ready. Once the puree has thickened, turn off your heat and set it aside to cool. The sweet potato puree is now cooled, and now I'm able to make and form the Broas de Batata Doce sweet potato biscuits. Now you'll need a baking tray covered with parchment paper to place your broas or biscuits on. I have a cutting board and I have my sweet potato puree. And you'll also need half a cup of yellow corn flour. And you're going to use the corn flour to flour your surface and your hands to ensure that the puree doesn't stick. Now to form the biscuits, you're going to take a piece of the sweet potato puree the size of a golf ball. There you go. Make sure your hands and your surface is floured with corn flour. And I'm going to take my hands and simply flatten it. Place it on my board. And I'm just going to shape it the shape of a diamond. Like I said earlier, you don't have to shape it this way. You can do it in a square or a circle, however you want to do it. But you flatten it and you have a biscuit. I'm just pinching the edges, and I will do this again just so you can see how to make it step by step. But there's your biscuit, and you place it onto the baking tray. There you have it. At this point, you want to ensure that your oven is preheated at 350 degrees. Before placing the broas in the oven, I have an egg yolk, which I've mixed together here, and I'm just using it as a wash onto the broas. I'm going to bake the broas at 350 degrees Celsius for 25 minutes or until they're lightly golden brown on the top. And here are the Broas de Batata Doce sweet potato biscuits, soft and moist on the inside.
Okay, everyone, that was my Broas de Batata Doce recipe, sweet potato biscuits. And this biscuit actually has a very soft and moist texture inside. Very delicious. And I hope you enjoyed the recipe. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, everyone, thanks so much for watching. Take care.